49ers versus Bears, week 1, Lance versus Fields. Man, there's so much here. Now, it's interesting because you can't just really start with where we are right now. This was the matchup everybody wanted last year. Week 8, 49ers were 2-4, about to be basically done with their whole season. And that Bears game was the turning point. But that was Jimmy G versus Justin Fields. You want to see Lance versus Fields. You just want to see that. And we didn't get to last year. Now, Lance did start 2 games, 10 total quarters worth of playing time. But this time he takes the field as QB1. And Jimmy Garoppolo's on the bench. Trey Lance is in the game. Has there ever been any more criticism of a young quarterback? Not that I could think of. Not from their own fan base who are, Jimmy loyalists or Mac Jones truthers or whatever. Fill in the blank. It's been fun. And so I'm just so excited for what's going on right here. Now let's dive into what the Bears looked like last year. They were 6-11, very bad football team. 22nd points allowed out of 32 teams. Awful. 27th points scored out of 32 teams, right? So they're not good at defense. They're not good at offense. I don't think a lot of that changes. If we look at a per snap analytics basis, here's the Bears ranks last year. 26th overall. Team, special teams, offense, defense, all that. Offense 23rd, defense 27th, special teams 6th. Yeah, so they did have something, but I think they took a huge step back in special teams. We'll get to that. Now, in contrast, what were the 49ers last year? Well, again, overall 5th, offense tied for 3rd, defense tied for 7th, special teams 21st. So it's totally different. There's no doubt about it, but it's a whole new regime. Different everything for the Chicago Bears. First-time head coach, Matt Eberflus, one of the coolest names ever. He was the Colts defensive coordinator for the past 3 years. Bears did finish 3-0 in preseason and looked very, very good doing it, which was awesome. Now, if you want to see a little bit more of the visual representation of what the Bears did in the preseason, you got to head to our Patreon, because we are doing a coaching step-by-step breakdown with 49ers Cutback on the all 22 of what the Bears are going to try to get done to the 49ers. So if you want to see that, just go to patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast. That's available for all Steve Young and up tiers. We got lots of different options. And to remind you, after the game, obviously we go live after the game, which I'm excited about. I love those post-game celebrations or therapy sessions if the Niners don't come on top. But we will be going over every offensive, defensive, and special team snaps on Patreon. That's a Frank Gore tier. So everybody gets that. So if you want to know more about the game after the fact, that's where you get that. Trust me, you sign up on Patreon, you're going to like it. If you don't, we got you. We will refund everything. Now, both teams have some injuries. There's no doubt about it. The 49ers, Jimmy Ward being out is probably about as big as it can get. McGlinchey's been banged up, but looking good. Daniel Brunskill's not looking promising, and the 49ers just added another very core player to their injury list, George Kittle, with a groin strain. Here's Shanahan talking about it briefly at practice.
I'm not sure. I was hoping to be good today. Did it a little on Monday and not feeling good today, so we'll have to see day by day.
Day by day, not great. I would say pay attention to the days. If he suits up and gets a just limited practice in on Friday, then I think he plays. If he doesn't, he's going to be out. Now, the good news with that, you got 4 tight ends, most in the NFL, on your active roster. And you just brought Troy Fumagalli back, who was with us during the preseason to the practice squad. So I don't think you lose this game because George Kittle's out. A tight end is a position of strength for the 49ers, especially blocking wise. Now, maybe a little bit of those receiving big plays that Kittle can bring, but let's be honest, we haven't really seen Kyle Shanahan scheme those up in quite a while. Oren Burks, who is our 4th linebacker, questionable, bigger special teams guy. Ambry Thomas questionable, but I think he's going to be fine as well. So those are kind of the biggest issues out there. Now we go to the Bears, and really just a bad roster to start with, but their wide receivers are all questionable. Now, the good news is I don't ever want players to be out for injury, even if it ensures the 49ers winning. I want the 49ers to win because they're the better team. I want to play people at their full strength. Byron Pringle, who's a starter for this offense, probably their slot guy. He's questionable, but he did practice Monday. Velus Jones, rookie starter, questionable, but he did practice Monday. Their center, Lucas Patrick, who they got over, I think, from the Packers, he's questionable, but he did practice Monday. So I think they're all going to play, but in a bad wide receiver core, Tajay Sharp and N'Keal Harry, who they traded for, both on IR. So they're shallow. Dante Pettis shallow, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the connections coming up shortly. Now, the history of the matchup, 49ers and Bears have actually played a lot of times. They've played, the 49ers lead the series. 49ers have 35 wins, 32 losses, and 1 tie. It's close. The history of this matchup's close. The 49ers have won 5 out of the last 8 and 11 out of the last 17, which again, I think it tells the story of how bad the Bears have been. They had those 2 couple good years with Urlacher back in the day, and 1 good year with, when they traded for Khalil, which he's gone now. And they've just been bad. It's just a lot of bad quarterback play. And I think Fields will overturn that. Now, the matchup last year was awesome. We were able to go there. We had the 49ers Rush road trip there. We're doing it again this week. But last year was interesting because, again, as I said, 49ers were dead last in the NFC West going into that game. 2-4, tied with Seattle. But the 49ers came out on top, 33-22. Jimmy Garoppolo had a very interesting game, 17 of 28, 322 yards. 85 of those were on a screen pass to Debo where he just took it the distance. Got tackled on the 1-inch line, right? So I guess not totally different. And Garoppolo had 2 rushing touchdowns. It was a Chicago game, man. Fields had his best game, not necessarily passing. Fields went 19 for 27, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he also rushed for 103 yards and a touchdown and had some major 3rd and long conversion plays that were just kind of spectacular, lack of a better word. Mitchell, he went 18 for 137 yards, 1 touchdown. Elijah Mitchell. Herbert had a good game, 23 rush attempts, 72 yards. Debo, 6 catches, 171. Mooney, 6 catches, 64 yards. And the Bears really controlled the time of possession. 37 minutes to the 49ers 23. Not ideal. David Montgomery, probably their best offensive player. He didn't even play for Chicago, but listen to the guys the 49ers missed last year. Aziz, out. Greenlaw, out. Kinlaw, out. Our kicker, Robbie Gould, out. Kittle was out last year. He might not play this week. He didn't play against them last year either. So a lot of guys that were out. Now, both teams, the Bears and the 49ers, have added a lot of players. None like the Bears, though. Good gosh. Talk about roster turnover. They've got 5 projected starters that they got in the draft. Now, similar to the 49ers, who traded up for quarterbacks in the prior year's draft. 49ers traded up for Trey Lance. Bears traded up for Justin Fields. They didn't have a first-round pick. Neither did we. Didn't stop them from, again, projected starters. Kyler Gordon, cornerback, 2nd round, who I loved. He's going to be starting corner. Jaquan Brisker, 2nd round, who I liked. He's going to be started. Velus Jones, 3rd round. Thought that was a big reach, but he's starter for him. This one's probably the biggest. Braxton Jones, 5th round offensive tackle pick. And it's not all right. I'm not bagging on small school players. I love small school players. Trey Lance, right? Some of that stuff. He played at Southern Utah, the Fighting Thunderbirds. He's starting at left tackle. That's not great against Nick Bosa. So you go from starting Southern Utah, your 5th round pick. Now your first game starting at left tackle is against Nick Bosa. That right there alone is probably the one matchup where it's like, oh my gosh, that this could be catastrophic. It could be catastrophic for the entire game. They also got a punter, Trenton Gill, in the 7th round, who's now their starting punter. A free agency, they added a bunch. Nicholas Morrow from the Raiders. He's going to be the Sam backer. Al Quadrin Muhammad from the Colts, starting defensive end. Lucas Patrick from Green Bay, starting center. Claimed Alex Leatherwood from the Raiders. He's going to be kind of the backup Daniel Brunskill role. I'm not sure he's going to get much playing time. He just got brought on. And Brian Pringle from the Chiefs. So That's 8 new starters, right? You've got 22 starters, 11 and 11. I did count the punter, so you can throw that in there as well. But that's a third of a new freaking team starting wise. And the problem is this: none of them are premier level talent. Even if some of those draft picks pan out as studs, none of them were top tier draft picks. None of them were first rounders. You look at the free agents, none of those guys were prize free agents. The Bears are rebuilding their entire team. And this is not that they're tanking, but they're freeing up cap space. They're freeing up draft capital to build for the future. Bears are not, they're even rebuilding their stadium and changing the location of their stadium and all those things. So this is 100% just build for the future. They're not expecting any returns this year. They're trying to figure out if Justin Fields can be their guy. Now, the 49ers have added players too. Spencer Burford, 4th rounder. Samuel Womack, 5th rounder. And if you want to talk trash on their 5th round tackle, well, guess what? Our 4th round guard, UTSA. Small schools come across, and that's okay. If you're looking at, added depth, Charvarius Ward from the Chiefs, Ray McLeod. I don't think he's a starter, more of a punt returner. He'll be kind of that 4th wide receiver, maybe 3rd wide receiver ahead of Juwan Jennings, but I think they're going to kind of rotate.
The 49ers Rush Podcast.